July 27th, 2024. Well, it looks like the Democrats are having a Kamalagasm. And as they call it, I mean, they are just going absolutely crazy about Kamala. It's an amazing event here. I mean, she previously was considered to be not that great of a choice, and all of a sudden she is just fantastic, according to the Democrats. I mean, when you're on X particularly, I mean, it's just like I'm getting deluged with posts of people asserting her prowess or whatever. So we'll have to see how that turns out. I think one of the interesting things about it is that finally, belatedly, Obama finally endorsed her, but he was way late in the game, and the word is that this was not his favorite pick. I think he wanted Mark Kelly of Arizona, the former astronaut, as the replacement for Joe Biden, and instead. Appears to be that Biden did pull off one thing in his exit. He managed to double cross or let's say outfox the Obama team and got Kamala on the road to success by endorsing her and pretty much giving her his campaign organization, which gave her the upper hand. And pretty soon everybody else one by one had to follow. And finally, belatedly, on Friday, Obama obliged as well. But so anyhow, it is kind of an interesting situation. They're spending a lot of effort. Of course, it's been noted that they're trying to change the past and deny that she really was the border czar, and that and also her support for a fund that was bailing out rioters during the BLM riots of 2020. And we'll see how that all plays out. I guess the question on the latter is the question, did she donate herself or did she simply promote them in some way? I think that's the issue. It doesn't really matter which, she's still guilty, right? But anyhow, so that's what we've got on this effort. As I pointed out, though, for some time I was saying I was very opposed to the early June 27th debate because here we are. And I think what we've done is we've gone from what would have been a sure thing to what would be something that may be a little rockier in places. Although I tend to think that Trump will be able to handle her pretty well in debates and things like that. And there's plenty of attack lines you can use against her. If he was a more traditional type Republican, like a McCain or a Romney or somebody like that, that this whole racist, sexist thing might deter him, but I don't think it will really deter Trump, which is perhaps one of his saving graces in this environment. So anyhow, so that's kind of the way things are going, and we'll have to see, how the campaign develops from here. But for the moment, she's getting a little bit of a minor surge in the polls, although the latest I've seen on the Real Clear Politics average suggests that it's still like Trump's ahead by about a little under 2%, maybe 1.6 or 1.7, depending on which polls you count. If you throw out all the ones before she actually kind of took off, let's say on Monday or Tuesday, and even the latest Wall Street Journal poll, I think, was just up 2% for Trump, which I think is pretty nominal. Certainly, she's doing better than Biden was at the end. But we have to remember, the Democrats were actually actively campaigning against him and may have even been rigging some of the polls that they controlled to make him look worse so they could get rid of him. That was the whole idea, to convince him he couldn't win. And then they withheld a lot of campaign money from him and then, of course, committed it, quote, to her, after she formally kind of announced, or what, after, how you want to put it. She never exactly announced. I guess Biden just endorsed her, and then all the money started flowing her way. So that's the race we're going to be faced with here. I can get into some ideas on that. If you like these videos, please give me a like. I'm looking for more subscriptions on YouTube here, and also on Rumble. I post these on Rumble as well. And if you're a member of Rumble, not YouTube, you can subscribe there, or if you're in both, you can do both, of course. All right, so that's kind of that. I think one vulnerability I think she has, she's going to try to play up the idea that she was a prosecutor and Trump was a felon, but I think that plays right into a potential Trump counterattack, which is she's the kind of prosecutor that would go after people and create false charges. And the aggressive abuse of the Justice Department, and I think it's 40 some of the Justice Department prosecutors and members have just endorsed her, and I think that's exactly what we've been working against, is their misuse of the justice system. So I'm not sure that's as effective as she thinks it will be. She's California, she's San Francisco, California. I mean, look what they've done with both the law and order out there and the state. I mean, I think that's something to campaign against, and she was a senator from there as well as the attorney general. So that looks to me like that's a clear vulnerability. I mean, the lawlessness of California is notorious, with gangs robbing stores, and so forth. All the drug situation and everything else. So I think there's plenty to use against her, plus all the different statements that she made advocating a variety of policies that are a little bit over the extreme level, let's say. So anyway, that's kind of the way I see the campaign shaping up. But of course, we're in the early giddy phase for the Democrats, and so that's why, as I say, they're kind of having in a state of ecstasy at the moment. But I think that may change as time goes forward. In fact, I'm kind of looking forward to the convention. Will she get a convention bump or a convention dump? I mean, if a bunch of protesters show up like they did in D.C. with the Netanyahu visit, that might not bode so well, of course, for them. So we'll have to see, that's an upcoming development. We'll see whether she can maintain anything or gain on it or not. I do want to update a little bit on the issue about the attempted assassination of Trump and some of the things I said in previous videos. I think at this point, I think the picture is becoming a little bit more clear than it was at the time. It looks like we have a pretty firm factor that the shooter got off 8 rounds, and that he was able to basically get up using the air conditioning outside unit and then climb up the side of the building. The guy's a real squirrel, and got up there and then slithered along. But apparently, because he'd done reconnaissance ahead of time with his own drone, he knew the layout of the land and apparently had a general idea of where the snipers would be located, apparently, and was able to get to position which obscured their view because he was on the other side of that little. There's kind of a rise, like a gable, very very low sloping gabled roof. I mean, it was barely a very small slope. I don't know, 10 degree, 15 degree angle. It was very, very little. And he was able to be on the far side of it and slithered into position. And so they were having trouble. The other issue with snipers was that they were apparently, and this is tentative, that they may have been confused and thought that there was a police officer that was taking a position up over there or something, although that seems a little wrong to me, but that'll have to be clarified later. But at any rate, his visibility was minimal to them. And so he got off 8 rounds. The first 3 were aimed shots that were clearly, aimed at Trump, and one of them clipped him on the ear. We can get into that little controversy. Basically, he was grazed, would be the way I would look at it, on the top of the ear. And that round apparently went on and hit one of the bystanders in the torso, I think. And then another one of the shots hit another bystander, and I think another one hit a hydraulic line, which spread a bunch of hydraulic fluid all over the area, maybe onto the vehicle that was there waiting to extract Trump if there was an emergency, which might have had an effect of slowing things up a little bit. And anyhow, and then later on he got off 5 rounds rapid fire. It doesn't look like they were well aimed, but one of them ended up hitting the retired fire chief in the head and killing him. And the other 4, as far as we can tell, didn't hit any bystanders or anything notable. So I don't know exactly who he was shooting at. He may have been trying to shoot at the huddle of Secret Service agents over Trump. That may be what happened there. It's hard to know. At one time, I thought that he might be trying to engage the counter snipers, but I don't think he was doing that either. It's possible. But we'll have to. As far as we know, then at the end, a few seconds later, there was a single shot that killed him and ended the situation. As far as the people, there were people that were supposed to be looking on the neighboring building, and they had a very small window, it turns out. And so it's probable at least one of them stayed there, and maybe one of them left and went looking for him earlier. I know that remember there were the two officers that had one got piggybacked on the other one and was trying to pull himself up on the roof, and then he was facing the shooter. Head on, and looking down the barrel of his rifle, he ducked down and lost his balance, and they went to the ground, and then they immediately called it in. But apparently there's also a communication mess up that led to the what happened next. But it's possible those guys may have helped save Trump's life also, because he may have that may have put him under some extra stress and made him hurry up and shoot before he really had as good an aim as he might have had. And so that's another aspect of this. But anyway, that's kind of what I've learned since then. There was some rumor that one of the supporting police snipers had taken a shot, but as far as I know, nothing has confirmed that. So at the present, I'm assuming not. At one time I'd mentioned that I thought maybe he was returning fire from somebody that took a shot at him, but I think the police, now I'm beginning to doubt that was the case. So we're still waiting the investigation and so forth. Oh yeah, the one thing that I did mention that came up because of the FBI director Ray's miscomment, who, remember, Ray never was a police officer or a law enforcement officer directly. That is, he never was an FBI field agent or any, so he's not too familiar with the firearms world, I don't think. Referring to the shell casings as cartridges is probably not quite correct, for example. And so but at any rate, he fell into the whole thing about that the Democrats have been pushing that for some reason they think it's a big deal whether it was a glass shard or something or shrapnel or whatever or an actual bullet. In reality, it almost has to be a bullet because of the damage that was done to the other people during the first seconds. I mean, if you have one bullet hitting a bystander and another one hitting another bystander, and Trump's ear being grazed somehow, and then the hydraulic line being hit with 3 rounds fired, obviously it had to be a bullet that went over. The teleprompter panes were not damaged. There was no glass that was shattered. There's no way you could hit the bystander and also graze Trump's ear at the same time, unless it was a single bullet going right through. And so that's obviously what happened. But I don't know why they seem to think they're proving something with that, but I don't think they really are, and they're looking kind of stupid as always. So anyway, that's about that. Now, my own idea here is we definitely realize now that the security around Trump has not been adequate throughout this whole campaign. And the question is was this political and deliberate? I mean, I sometimes think, in a way, what we're going on here is not a master plan strategy, but a simple, using the principle of logical simplicity, otherwise known as Occam's razor, that essentially you go for the simplest answer. And the answer may very well be that the plan was, okay, just keep the security around Trump to an inadequate minimal level, and then let nature take its course. There's plenty of nuts in the country. And so, sooner or later, a nut might just show up. And that may be what the deep state was counting on, so to speak, as opposed to where they actually were communicating with somebody, recruiting somebody to do the evil deed. They simply were counting that there were enough evil people out there that would have such a motivation that sooner or later, with enough rallies, one of them would show up. And if the security was lax enough, he might, might have something happen. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at that at worst. I still am doubtful that anybody was really communicating or planning this, although you'll have to admit that this guy was a little more clever than your typical, John Hinckley type, I mean, actually having a drone to but then the technology is there today and available. And having a drone, do reconnaissance ahead of time and uh, find the path where it would be not observed. I guess the other thing that's kind of interesting when they actually had the video of that was released is that his body is separated a few feet from the rifle, and I don't see any way the rifle would go flying off like that. So my guess is that he'd left his rifle behind and was trying to extract himself when he actually, in the final seconds before he was terminated by the sniper team 2 shooter. So at any rate, that's what we've learned about that at the moment. And I still think that Trump ought to put maximum effort into his own security, because when you have one of these events, that even crazies that weren't stirred up before are probably stirred up now. That's one of, in mass shootings, you often notice that there's an original one, and then there's a couple of 3 aftershocks sometimes. And when the nuts get motivated in a certain direction, you have to watch out. So anyway, that's about that. I'll be wrapping this one up for now. As always, of course, I post it on YouTube and Rumble, and the address of my social media accounts are in the description below. And it looks like I may be a little more active on X than I typically am even. I've been in the past few days, I've just been sort of mixing up with some of these Democrats. So we have to do what we have to do for the campaign here. So, and of course, if you have any available money to contribute to Trump or to the Republican campaigns or your local Senate, House campaign, if you have it, that might be good. Piece of advice: unless you don't want a lot of text on your phone, don't give them your cell phone number. Okay. I personally prefer to respond to emails online, and that's my preference. I wish they do that, but anyway. But I don't really like text on my phone. Several a day. I don't appreciate that. It just doesn't work well for me. So anyway, all for now. Until next time.